They packed her bag for her, didn't even let her speak. Just pointed at the gate and erased her name like she was never there. No warning, no appeal, just one accusation signed by men too scared to be exposed. What they didn't know was that the quiet woman they kicked out of training wasn't some admin type with clean boots. She was already assigned to a sealed detachment. And 3 hours after they expelled her, a Blackhawk dropped out of the clouds and landed right on their parade ground. Now, before we show you the exact moment the SEAL officer asked the question that froze the entire base, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from, tap subscribe and make sure the bell icon's on. Because today wasn't about getting kicked out. It was about walking back in, on a bird no one saw coming. Mist hung over West Ridge Naval Training Center, soft enough to blur the perimeter. Gulls circled the antennas. The flag cables clanged like a metronome no one wanted. Recruits stood in 2 rows, Navy, Marines, a few cross rates, waiting for performance evals and inspection scores. It was the kind of quiet you didn't break unless you wanted your name remembered for the wrong reasons. Petty Officer Elena Ward stood at the far end of the second row. She wasn't a joker or a talker, but she was sharp, uncomfortably sharp. 6 years fleet side, convoy ops, detachment security, Bahrain logistics under live fire. This cross-rate into special operations support wasn't a novelty. It was a tactical move. She didn't want a trident. She wanted to support the ones who had them. Her uniform was precise, boots clean, name tape tight. A faint scar along her wrist whispered a story from 3 years back. Blast fragment, fully healed, but still a topic of whispers. Too sharp for her own good. She caught 2 inventory errors. She doesn't play the politics. Chief Mercer didn't hide his opinion. Called her a clipboard ninja. Said she thought like a lawyer and moved like a spy. Others nodded, safer that way. Elena noticed something was off today. Not the fog, the tension. Something felt misaligned across the gravel. Ensign Braddock, a nervous junior admin, walked past with a clipboard. His eyes met hers, then darted away. The PA crackled. Petty Officer Ward, front and center. She stepped forward, steady, controlled. Instructors shifted. Mercer folded his arms. Another scribbled into a folder without looking up. Elena stopped 3 paces from the command deck. Reporting as ordered, sir. Captain Rourke lifted a folder and spoke in a tone that froze the formation. Petty Officer Elena Ward, effective immediately, you are administratively separated from West Ridge Naval Training Center. A ripple moved through the ranks. Elena stayed still. Inside, gears turned. Rourke continued. Grounds include falsified training documentation, unauthorized modification of issued gear, and conduct unbecoming during evaluation drills. Elena blinked once. None of it matched reality. Sir, she asked calmly, may I request clarification on the documentation? Chief Mercer stepped in before Rourke could answer. Not the time, Ward. Rourke didn't correct him. He just closed the folder. You'll be escorted to the gate. There was no appeal packet. Just her duffel bag already packed, sitting beside the podium. Someone expected this. Someone rehearsed it. 2 instructors approached, not aggressive, just certain. Whispered reactions leaked through the ranks. She got kicked. For what? That doesn't sound right. Mercer's been after her since the inspection logs. Mercer held out her badge. The magnetic strip was scored, deactivated. We'll take this. No smirk. Just final. Elena unpinned it and handed it over. She lifted the duffel. It felt wrong. Too organized, packed by someone else. As she walked toward the gate, she spotted Ensign Braddock again. The moment their eyes met, he rushed into the comm shed and shut the door too fast. Interesting. At the gate, the MP looked confused. Ma'am, you're leaving training? She's done, Mercer said, showing the dead badge. The gate closed behind her with a metallic thunk. Clearance gone. Badge gone. Accusations she couldn't answer. And a base pretending she'd never belonged. Elena kept walking alone. The coastal access road curved along the bluff, just wide enough for 2 service trucks to squeeze past each other. Elena walked it alone. The only sound was the distant crash of waves against rock and the dry rustle of eucalyptus overhead. Her duffel bounced against her hip, the strap digging into the same shoulder that once carried a weapons crate through a sandstorm. She wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger didn't hit in moments like this, not if you were trained. Civilians jogged the nearby path. Two older men. A young woman with a stroller. One of them gave Elena a polite nod, eyes flicking from her uniform to her bag, trying to understand why someone in military gear was walking away from a base with no escort. He didn't ask. She didn't explain. Elena kept walking until the perimeter fence disappeared behind the trees. Then she stopped at a weathered bench facing the bay. She dropped her bag, sat, and pulled a small notepad from the outer pouch. Not military issue, personal. Corners curled from sun, pages lined with coordinates, initials, log times. Her handwriting was neat and exact. She inhaled the salt air, tapped the notepad twice, then reached into her pocket. A slim black phone, her private line. She typed a number she hadn't used in 6 months. No name, no greeting, just one message. Asterisk issue at West Ridge. Need 10 minutes to explain. She hit send. No reply. She hadn't expected one. A long breath settled in her chest. She leaned back, eyes half closed, not remembering emotionally, but tactically. Convoy 3A. Southern route. No radio coverage. Fractured axle. Enemy presence inside 300 meters. She coordinated evac while stabilizing a man who bled into her lap for 16 minutes. Riyadh checkpoint. Corrupt Allied commander falsifying shipment weights to redirect UN aid. She flagged it, built a paper trail, and was reassigned quietly within a week. This wasn't her first sabotage, just the sloppiest. Her phone buzzed. Not a reply, just a secure location ping. Confirmation received. That was enough. Elena exhaled slowly, unzipped her duffel, and laid out the little gear she had left. Nothing illegal, nothing special, but each item arranged with purpose. She checked serial numbers out of habit. This wasn't clumsiness. This wasn't incompetence. This was orchestration, deliberate, targeted, and deeply stupid. Whoever engineered her removal expected her to vanish quietly. They counted on a petty officer. They didn't consider who she actually worked with. And in less than an hour, they'd learn exactly what that mistake would cost. Inside West Ridge, the atmosphere had shifted. The parade deck was empty, the fog thinning, but tension clung to the admin wing like humidity in a sealed room. Chief Mercer pushed through the glass doors of Administration Block C with the confidence of someone who believed the crisis was over. 2 officers followed, Lieutenant Grayson from Logistics and Warrant Officer Pierce from Training Oversight. Both carried folders. Both looked uneasy. "Let's get this done," Mercer said, striding into a small conference room and tossing a file onto the table. "Ward's separation needs to be finalized before afternoon drills." Pierce hovered. "You're sure this won't bounce back? Her record's clean." Mercer scoffed. "Too clean. That's half the problem." Grayson frowned. "Meaning?" Mercer leaned in, lowering his voice even though no one else was close. "Ward's been poking into things she shouldn't. Gear logs, chain of custody discrepancies, asking questions about the breaching charge misfire last month." Pierce shifted. "That accident was filed as operator error. And that's where it's staying," Mercer said sharply. "The Ordnance NCO doesn't need another black mark. Not after Bahrain." Grayson's jaw tightened. "So, you altered the log?" Mercer didn't flinch. "I corrected it. A difference you'd understand if you spent less time in spreadsheets," Mercer muttered. Pierce opened the folder on the table, Ward's file, training scores, eval notes, and a printed page from the equipment sign-out log. Elena's supposed signature appeared beside a line reading, "Gear modified without authorization." The handwriting was wrong, slanted, rounded, not hers. "You falsified this," Pierce said quietly. Mercer shrugged. "She caught discrepancies that weren't her concern. She pushed too hard, so we handled it. You want the whole chain collapsing because one petty officer thinks she's command." Grayson rubbed his forehead. "If anyone looks deeper," They won't, Mercer snapped. She's out. It's over. He pulled out a template for a base-wide internal notice and slid it across the table. Subject, trainee dismissal, conduct issues. We'll circulate it before noon. Cuts down on rumors. Everyone will think she snapped under pressure. Pierce hesitated. She didn't. We all know she didn't. Mercer's stare hardened. Doesn't matter what she did. What matters is she's gone. She won't contest. People like her don't want attention. They walk away quietly. He snapped the folder shut. Draft the notice. Move on. The two officers exchanged a look, caught between conscience and consequence, but neither argued. They gathered their files and followed Mercer into the hallway. The fluorescent hum swallowed whatever hesitation they had left. At the end of the corridor, Ensign Braddock stepped out of an alcove. He had heard every word. His face was pale, hands trembling around a stack of forms. Mercer brushed past without noticing. Grayson followed silently. Braddock exhaled shakily. And in that moment, the conspiracy against Elena Ward was sealed. Or so they thought. The civilian side of the coastline didn't feel like a battlefield. Kids kicked sand. Joggers ran in pairs. Tourists snapped photos of the bay. But Elena knew better than to trust stillness. She sat on the same bench, back straight, boots flat, phone face down beside her. Her bag was zipped. Everything was ready. Then it came, a deep, bone-heavy thudding vibration. Not loud, not fast, but unmistakable. Military rotor rhythm. It rose from the horizon as the haze lifted over the Pacific. Seal birds never flew wide. They flew tight, low, and purposeful. This one was inbound. In Radar Tower 6, a junior tech frowned at the screen. Unscheduled rotary coming in from the west. Low altitude. Not in the flight plan. His supervisor rolled closer. Probably medevac from Camp Reeves. No transponder, the tech said, and no IFF response. The supervisor's face tightened. Radio it. Get vector clearance. He tried. Whiskey November 7. This is West Ridge ATC. Confirm flight origin and manifest. Silence. Again. Whiskey November 7. Identify yourself. Nothing. Rotor blades thundered closer. On the parade ground, instructors prepping agility cones looked up. One dropped his clipboard as the matte gray fuselage emerged over the treeline. No decals, no visible tail number. A heavily modified UH-60 Blackhawk cut straight into restricted airspace, dropping fast and steady. At the gate, security scrambled. Who cleared that bird? A petty officer barked. No clearance on file. Then who the hell is flying it? Outside the fence, Elena's phone buzzed. 2 words. 2 minutes. She stood, brushed sand off her sleeve, lifted her bag onto her shoulder. Her posture relaxed, not from relief, but because the timeline was unfolding exactly as expected. She crossed the coastal access road and began walking back toward the base. Not fast, not urgent, just present, the kind of walk that told the truth. She wasn't sneaking in. She was returning to something she never should have been removed from. At the gate, a sentry looked from her to the descending aircraft. Inside the admin wing, Chief Mercer's voice rose above the clamor. What the hell is that chopper doing over my field? The answer was 90 seconds away, and it wasn't going to ask permission. The matte gray Blackhawk came in fast but controlled, sweeping low across the treeline like a shadow hugging the earth. It banked once over the training compound, rotors pounding so deep they rattled the flagpoles and triggered 2 silent alarms inside security control on the parade ground. Cones flew, clipboards overturned. Recruits and instructors ducked as the downdraft tore loose papers from folding tables and kicked dust across the gravel. No base aircraft ever landed here. Not unannounced, not unscheduled, and definitely not in the middle of training protocol. Who cleared this? Mercer shouted. Who cleared this landing? The chopper didn't wobble. It dropped perfectly vertical, skids biting into the gravel with surgical precision. The rotors never slowed. The side door was already open before touchdown. A man stepped out onto the skid, tan flight suit, Navy-issue gloves, No name tag, no insignia. Yet everyone felt the presence. Not a contractor, not a pilot, a SEAL. He didn't shout over the rotors. He cut through them. "Where is Petty Officer Elena Ward?" His voice carried clean across the yard. A few instructors froze. A startled recruit pointed toward the gate before catching himself. No one answered. Chief Mercer stormed forward, trying to inject authority into a situation already slipping from him. "She was dismissed from training this morning," he snapped. "Unauthorized gear tampering. She's been removed from the facility." The SEAL officer stepped off the skid, boots planting solidly. "Dismissed?" he echoed calmly. "Petty Officer Ward was under direct operational transfer to our unit for a field integrity review. Her orders were cut 3 weeks ago. She was placed at West Ridge for final clearance observation. You had no authority to remove her." Mercer blinked, caught, confused, defensive. That's not what we were told." The officer didn't wait for a story. He turned toward the crew chief still inside the Blackhawk. "Open the manifest." The crew chief reached behind his seat, pulled a folded packet from a red binder, stepped down and held it up. The top page read, "Transfer Authorization Ward, Elena E. Designation, Operational Safety Oversight. Assignment, SEAL Attachment for Classified LOI, Ref hashtag FJ01-1372. 3 signatures marked the bottom, 2 naval, 1 joint command. Chief Mercer went visibly pale at the edge of the field. One instructor stammered, "She never mentioned." The SEAL officer turned to him. "She wasn't supposed to. She was testing your integrity, not your pride." Across the field, the base gates swung open. Elena Ward walked through them, duffel on her shoulder, posture steady. The rotor wash hit her uniform, but she didn't flinch. Her boots crunched gravel as she approached the formation. Someone whispered, "Oh, hell!" The gate alarms blared behind her. A beat too late. She didn't look back, didn't break stride. She was walking toward her ride, her command. The answer to a question the base never realized they were being tested on. Chief Mercer said nothing because there was nothing left to say. 2 military police guards flanked Elena as she passed through the outer gate, though neither touched her, and neither seemed sure why they were even escorting her. One looked at her badgeless chest, then at the helicopter roaring on the parade ground. "Ma'am, they said you were unauthorized," the younger guard muttered. Elena didn't reply, because now walking beside her was the man in the tan flight suit. Calm, expressionless, carrying rank with a silent weight that didn't need a patch. The SEAL officer didn't stop until they reached the stunned instructors. Recruits whispered behind scattered cones and overturned tables, heads swiveling between the aircraft, the officer, and Elena like they were trying to decode a language they'd never been trained to read. Captain Rourke stepped forward, arms folded, jaw tight. "She was removed per regulation," he said evenly. "We followed standard protocol. She was under operational transfer," the SEAL officer replied. He held up the folder. "This paperwork was submitted 6 weeks ago. Approved through Detachment 4, vetted by Joint Command." He passed the folder forward. Rourke hesitated, then opened it. Inside were 3 documents. Authorized memo signed by Comnav Specwire. Assignment transfer orders listing Elena Ward as Operational Safety Oversight Liaison. A classified letter of intent for high-risk systems audit in a live detachment theater. Elena stayed silent until Rourke looked up. "No one informed us," he said carefully. "I did," Elena answered. 2 weeks ago, through secure internal comms." She reached into her bag and handed him a printed copy of her original log submission, time-stamped earlier than any of the expulsion paperwork. Then she held up another page. "And this is the gear inspection log they claimed I falsified." Her name was typed at the top, but the signature was a printed image, not handwritten. "My inspection timestamp places me inside the comms building," she added. "On camera, with 2 witnesses." Captain Rourke looked toward Chief Mercer, who stood rigid and colorless. The SEAL officer turned slowly, voice cutting clean. You altered training documents to bury an error flagged by someone placed here to find those exact failures. That's not carelessness. That's a breach of command. Mercer tried to speak. Nothing came out. A corporal from admin rushed up. Sir, the JAG liaison is already on the line. They want all files related to the expulsion. Rourke nodded tightly. Chief Mercer, you're relieved. Pending investigation. The instructors behind him didn't move. One looked at the ground. Another stepped quietly back. Mercer didn't argue. He just stared at Elena like he'd seen a ghost, because in a way he'd buried someone he thought was powerless. And now, in front of the entire base, she had returned with every layer of truth. It didn't take long after that. The SEAL officer handed the transfer manifest directly to base operations, bypassing protocol with quiet, unshakable authority. He didn't need to raise his voice. His presence carried its own authority, clearance that sat outside their chain entirely. I'm requesting immediate reinstatement of Petty Officer Ward under operational authority, he said. As of this moment, she is no longer assigned to West Ridge. She is ours. Captain Rourke looked down at the document again, then at Elena. The embarrassment on his face wasn't personal, it was institutional. He had signed off on her expulsion without vetting it. He had trusted the words of his senior instructors over the silence of a subordinate. Consider her status corrected, he said quietly. Elena didn't nod or thank him. She simply held her bearing as the security lock was removed from her bag, and her name cleared from the dismissal list. A young logistics officer retrieved her duffel and approached with both hands, offering it back like he was returning a folded flag. Ma'am, he said softly. She took it, adjusted the strap, and for the first time since sunrise, her shadow rejoined the base like it had never left. Recruits nearby stopped pretending not to watch. A few shifted instinctively to parade rest, unsure of the protocol. One young Marine with scuffed sleeves muttered to his buddy. She wasn't nobody. The Blackhawk waited on the gravel like a judgment rendered in steel. Its rotors were slowing, not silent but steady, holding space for only one passenger. Elena stepped forward. The SEAL officer stood beside the open door. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened, barely. You ready? She nodded once. Always. As she moved to board, she paused beside Captain Rourke, standing near the chalked perimeter line, hands at his sides. He looked older now, not defeated, just humbled. She spoke plainly. No malice. No arrogance. Training only works when standards are real. Then she climbed inside. No applause. No fanfare. No shouted orders. But across the compound, Chief Mercer was being quietly escorted toward the security annex. 2 MPs now flanked him. Inside the helicopter, the crew chief handed Elena a headset. She secured her harness and faced forward without looking back. The aircraft lifted seconds later, dust spiraling beneath them. For everyone standing below, from stunned recruits to silent instructors, the message hit harder than the Blackhawk ever could. They hadn't just expelled the wrong person. They had expelled the only person who was exactly where she was supposed to be. The Blackhawk banked low over the coastline, hugging the cliffs. Elena sat upright in the rear compartment beside folded netting and an auxiliary fuel canister. Her helmet rested in her lap. The rotor thrum wasn't comforting, but it was familiar. Every vibration pulsed through her harness like a second heartbeat. The view outside was all Pacific and sky. No fences, no ranks, no clipped protocol. The crew chief glanced back and offered her a water bottle. She took it with a nod. Most people we pick up, he said after a moment, usually wave or cheer, or flip the bird. Elena shrugged softly. I'm not most people. The SEAL officer, seated across from her, gave a faint smile. He hadn't spoken since takeoff. Now he leaned forward, resting his forearms on his thighs. You could have fought back, he said. The minute they called you out. The minute your assignment came up. I wasn't there to flash clearance, she replied. I was there to see how they handled standards. The crew chief raised a brow. So, they failed. They revealed themselves, Elena said. The officer nodded once. Joint Command reviewed your inspection notes last week. You weren't just accurate. You were the only one who caught the breach pattern. Because I used to run the audit logs they pretend don't matter. He studied her a moment longer, then leaned back, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. Not praise, not admiration, just acknowledgement, the kind that didn't need a salute to land. Outside, the cliffs gave way to open water. The horizon stretched clean and endless. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, letting the wind pressure ripple across her skin through the open side panel. She wasn't thinking of Chief Mercer. She wasn't thinking of Captain Rourke. She wasn't thinking of the recruits. She was already beyond them. The crew chief spoke again, quieter now. Why didn't you tell them who you were assigned to? Elena opened her eyes, watching the sea shift from gray to deep blue. Because people show their truth when they think you're powerless. The SEAL officer nodded once. That was the end of it. The aircraft banked inland toward the next ridge, rotors swallowed by wind and salt and steel. Elena Ward didn't look back, because nothing behind her needed correcting. Only the mission ahead. If you were expelled from training for something you didn't do, would you fight back in the moment? Or stay quiet and let the truth surface on its own? And does discipline under pressure matter more than rank or reputation? Drop your answers in the comments. We read every single one. If the story gripped you, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. And if someone you know thinks quiet means weak, share this video with them. Your next mission is already on screen. Go watch it now.